can, I've seen you do it.
Wait.
When? I want evidence.
I want to take that back.
We will call to order the Seminole Airport Authority. Roll call, please, Jay.
Chris Anson.
Here.
Trace Connor.
Here.
Tim Poplin.
Here.
Eddie Foreman.
Here.
John Kramer. Larry Church.
Here.
Corey Crabtree.
Here.
Dana Miller.
Here.
Jeff Griffin.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Consideration and action of consent agenda.
See it every day.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Roll call. Sorry, Jay. I'm trying to take over your job.
Chris Anson.
Yes.
Trace Connor.
Yes.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Eddie Foreman.
Yes.
Larry Church.
Yes.
Corey Crabtree.
Yes.
Dana Miller.
Yes.
Jeff Griffin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
With no items removed from the consent agenda and no appearances or petitions from the audience, we'll move on to approvals and acceptances. Under bid surplus, item 1, consideration and possible action to approve declaring a surplus 2 6-bay T-hangers at the Seminole Municipal Airport and accepting bids for the removal and demolition. Move approval.
Second.
Any discussions? Roll call, please.
Chris Anson.
Airport.
Trace Connor.
Yes.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Eddie Foreman.
Yes.
Larry Church.
Yes.
Corey Crabtree.
Yes.
Dana Miller.
Yes.
Jeff Griffin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Under bids purchasing, item 2, consideration and possible action to approve the low bid of $2,691,930 from Tri-County Seal Company, Inc. for the Seminole Municipal Airport's Phase 1 Relocate Taxiway A project. And this would be a flow-through
Yes,
from our grant. that
yes,
we
FAA
received.
and Oklahoma Aeronautic Commission, yes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Chris Anson.
Yes.
Trace Connor.
Yes.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Eddie Foreman.
Yes.
Larry Church.
Yes.
Corey Crabtree.
Yes.
Dana Miller.
Yes.
Jeff Griffin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Would entertain a motion for adjournment?
Second.
Oh, wait, don't take that vote yet.
Is that, no, that's,
No.
that's
not
not
there
there
for
for
it.
us. Sorry. My
Take
bad.
that vote. I'll take it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Right, we'll get it together here in a second. It's only been a month since we.
You're doing well. You're doing well.
Move on to the regular meeting of the Seminole Gas Authority. Roll call, please, Jay.
Larry Church.
Here.
Tim Poplin.
Here.
Corey Crabtree.
Here.
Dana Miller.
Here.
Trace Connor.
Here.
John Kramer. Chris Anson.
Here.
Eddie Foreman.
Here.
Jeff Griffin.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Consideration and action of consent agenda. Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Larry Church.
Yes.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Corey Crabtree.
Yes.
Dana Miller.
Yes.
Trace Connor.
Yes.
Chris Anson.
Yes.
Eddie Foreman.
Yes.
Jeff Griffin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
With no items removed from the consent agenda and no appearances or petitions from the audience, we'll move on for an adjournment motion.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. All right, we will move on to the regular meeting of the Seminole Municipal Authority. Roll call, please.
Corey Crabtree.
Here.
Eddie Foreman.
Here.
Tim Poplin.
Here.
Dana Miller.
Here.
Larry Church.
Here.
Chris Anson.
Here.
John Kramer. Trace Connor.
Here.
Jeff Griffin.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Consideration and action of consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second. Roll call, please.
Corey Crabtree.
Yes.
Eddie Foreman.
Yes.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Dana Miller.
Yes.
Larry Church.
Yes.
Chris Anson.
Yes.
Trace Connor.
Yes.
Jeff Griffin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
With no items removed from the consent agenda and no appearances or petitions from the audience, we'll move on to approvals and acceptances. Bids, item 1, consideration and possible action to approve the sole bid of $205,014.90 from Craft Reynolds Construction Company for pipe bursting sewer lines on Harding and Reed Street and East Broadway, a budgeted capital improvement project for fiscal year 2023-24. Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Corey Crabtree,
Yes.
Eddie Foreman,
Yes.
Tim Poplin,
Yes.
Dana Miller,
Yes.
Larry Church,
Yes.
Chris Anson,
Yes.
Trace Connor,
Yes.
Jeff Griffin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Under Resolutions, item 2, consideration and possible action to approve resolution number SMA 2023-04, a resolution authorizing and approving the transfer of surplus budget funds of $3,678.52 from the Utilities Office to General Government and appropriating additional operating budget funds of $443,345.97 for shortfalls in the water and sewer departments, as evidenced by the budget amendment worksheet.
You need to find this. I can,
Yes, okay, so we'll have another one of these on the, when we get to the general fund, under the city council. This year, we, probably due to inflation factors and the fact that we changed our trash service, we went over budget by $443,000, but we also brought in additional funds due to those factors. So we have enough to cover, and we have a surplus for the year, but we still have to amend the budget and appropriate funds for those departments that were under budget, or that were over budget.
so it came out even.
We actually came out.
Oh, ahead.
Well, yes, ahead.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Corey Crabtree,
Yes.
Eddie Foreman,
Yes.
Tim Poplin,
Yes.
Dana Miller,
Yes.
Larry Church,
Yes.
Chris Anson,
Yes.
Trace Connor,
Yes.
Jeff Griffin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second. Well, hold on.
Got
That's the
one.
one to hold on. All right, we're going to item 3, under resolution, consideration and possible action to approve resolution number SMA 2023-05, a resolution providing for the sale of a promissory note of the authority to the Oklahoma Water Resources Board to provide funds for an evaluation survey of the city of Seminole's sanitary sewer system.
Move approval.
Well, I think we have Chris Byam. He's going to come up and kind of discuss that and share some information, if you would, please.
Yes, sir. Mayor, council members, it's good to see you all again. If you recall, oh golly, back in June, we approved the process of applying for a loan forgiveness loan through the OWRB to do a survey study on the sewer system. A bunch of communities applied for that loan forgiveness. They had, I believe, around $10 million to loan out. A bunch of people applied, a bunch of cities applied, a bunch of people, the cities did not get that. Seminole did. This loan essentially has to be done, rather than be done as a grant, it has to be done as a loan. I believe that's because of EPA requirements. It's EPA money, essentially. Essentially, this will be a loan forgiveness. Essentially, what will happen is, once the loan is closed, money will be advanced to the engineer and the closing cost. Once the survey is completed and the engineer does a final billing and the OWRB is satisfied that everything is according to their standards, the EPA standards, they will at that point forgive the loan. And basically, it'll act as a grant at that point.
So, one, the company that's going to be doing the survey understands exactly what's required for us to be able to receive the forgiveness of the loan.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what would be the worst case that we might be forced to pay that back?
Well, the worst case would be is OWRB, and according to the documents, the way they're structured now, they have not been finalized, but this is standard, there will be a standard provision of the documents would be that If they say, hey, your engineer didn't do this and he needs to do that, you have, I believe, 60 days to rectify that and to their satisfaction. So if we want to take that out a step further and say he can't do it, or is for whatever reason is unable to, it would at that point be a no-interest loan.
Okay. So is that something that would be in the contract that would require them to be able to perform these tasks where they would be under penalty, which would meet this cost?
We can write that in, yes.
I mean, that would be a safeguard, I would think, for us to. Is that something you've seen before, or?
Well, to be honest with you, Mayor, this is a new program, but no, I think that makes sense though, Steve. I
Yeah,
mean,
this, I can't fathom a situation where Water Resources Board would balk on anything that the engineer has to say. This is not a construction project, this is an evaluation of our sewers system, so.
And I think that's a big thing here is that this is not a construction project. This is an engineering study. It's pretty straightforward, pretty cut and dry.
I have a question.
Please.
So who takes on the loan?
I'm sorry?
Who takes on the loan?
It'll be the SMA, Municipal Authority.
So then my question is if it's a loan, aren't we, and it's been a minute since I took that training, but to take on more debt that we can't cover in the budget, what does that do for us there? Does that put us in violation of that, or no?
Yeah. The quick answer is there is no payment structure on it. So as long as we perform the contract, there is no payment. So we're not in any budget restrictions.
I think she's talking about, are you talking about pledging money?
Yes.
Or in the first budget year, or the budget year, then you can pay
Then we can
back?
cover, right, in case something does go
Go
wrong.
ahead, Chris, you can.
Yeah, and essentially there are two different entities here. The city has to comply with their budget as such by statute and by law. The SMA can take on the debt, and it's done all the time. And, you know, in that worst-case scenario, you would have to find money in the budget. It would be roughly, a payment of principal would amount to about 1/40th of the $436,000 because it's a 20-year loan and you make semi-annual payments.
So I think I heard, to make sure I heard you right, worst case scenario, and I don't like to plan like
No,
that, but I'm
no,
just
that's
trying
a fair question. It
to keep
is.
myself off of the front page of the paper. So if something goes wrong, we would be responsible to pay back the entire amount, or
You would be
just a portion?
responsible for whatever amount you actually take down of the loan.
Okay.
So, you know, if you complete the engineering study and you owe that to the engineer, you know, and I think the mayor had probably a good idea as far as the engineer's contract. You know, if OWRB doesn't approve it, then whoops.
I mean, they can either complete the work, pay for someone to complete it.
To
or-
OWRB's satisfaction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the amount would be paid over a period of 40 years, right?
Yes, sir, yes.
Which would be
Well, no, it'd be over 20 years.
20 years.
Right,
thought
yeah,
it was
20
40.
years. Yep.
40 at 0%, or 20 at 0%.
Yeah, 0%.
Where did I get 40? Okay.
40 payments, that's what you think. Semi.
So 23,000 roughly a year, right?
This is an absolute necessary study before we can go on with our sewer system, is that correct?
Yes.
And in theory, it's free. It's essentially a grant, but with clause.
And it's an unsecured loan as well. You're not pledging up your water, sewer, or sales tax.
The engineer doesn't get paid unless he does all his work, right? So, I mean, as long as they're not paying him up front, and then he doesn't complete something, I don't know.
Yeah.
where we can go.
Like you
Very
said,
low
that he
risk.
pays after it's approved.
Because they're not gonna pay him unless he provides them all the records, whatever the requirements are.
And
As long as that's the way it works.
to be direct, we'll get a list of engineers that are trusted through OWRB to send the bid packets to.
I'm still concerned because when we first had this discussion, it was a grant. And now I'm hearing the word loan, which worries me. And I feel like I don't understand how, if it does go wrong and the engineer somehow, I don't know, wins the lottery and just doesn't come back. What are we left holding the bag? And if so, are we in violation of any? No, okay, I see.
What it is that the authority can take on debt for multiple years in a row, unlike the city. So, but correct me if I'm wrong here, but our authority, our municipal authority, does generate revenue from water and sewer. So you'll be able to, I mean, in the worst case scenario, you'll be able to appropriate funds per budget year, so to speak, to take care of that. We should be easily able to handle that, worst case scenario.
It's like Tracy said, we gotta do it anyway, whether we pay for it or not, we gotta do it, right? It's a necessary evil,
Yeah,
so.
and just so for clarification, this one has always been a forgivable loan. We got you confused because of the ECWAC grant, which was more for telemetry on water that we were submitting at the same time. So this one is a forgivable loan. I will also mention at this point, we're not going to send the paperwork off until we get a blessing from USDA on our sewer plant loan, that this is okay with them, that we take this unsecured debt on at the same time that we're giving them first, I'm going to call it a lien, but first position on the sewer plant and the revenues therefrom. So we're not going to sign this up until we get the okay from USDA.
And I'd like to go back to the point also that you only pay on amounts that are advanced on the loan. And I'm with you. I don't understand why it's a loan either. It's some sort of federal rule somewhere. But with that having been said, what you owe will be you will owe on what the amounts advanced. And the vast lion's share of the amount will be the engineering. And if OWRB won't approve the engineering that was done, then your contract will be drafted so that you don't owe the engineer. So if you don't owe the engineer, then,
You have to start over with the
Yeah.
contractor.
yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We have that item on the table. Do we have a motion?
I'll second
Too late.
Okay.
Roll call, please.
Corey Crabtree,
Yes.
Eddie Foreman,
Yes.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Dana Miller,
Yes.
Larry Church,
Yes.
Chris Anson,
Yes.
Trace Connor,
Yes.
Jeff Griffin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, folks.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for helping.
Thank you.
Under current business, item 4, consideration and possible action to approve payment in the amount of $7,066.72 to the Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality for a construction permit for the new wastewater treatment plant with funding via the bridge loan line of credit from First United Bank. Motion to approve? Second. Roll call, please.
Corey Crabtree,
Yes.
Eddie Foreman,
Yes.
Tim Poplin,
Yes.
Dana Miller,
Yes.
Larry Church,
Yes.
Chris Anson,
Yes.
Trace Connor,
Yes.
Jeff Griffin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, excellent. Motion passes. Move on to the regular meeting of the Seminole City Council. Roll call, please.
Tim Poplin.
Here.
Corey Crabtree. Larry Church.
Here.
Trace Connor.
Here.
Chris Anson.
Here.
Eddie Foreman.
Here.
Dana Miller.
Here.
John Kramer. Jeff Griffin.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Salute. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lord, thank you for our wonderful city of Cimarron, and for everyone that's here this evening. I would ask that you bless our decisions and our discussions. In your name we pray.
Amen.
I'm so glad you weren't in it.
Did you receive that message loud and
Who
clear?
has the remote to my chair?
All right, we'll move on to consideration and action of consent agenda.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Corey Crabtree. Larry Church.
Yes.
Trace Connor.
Yes.
Chris Hansen.
Yes.
Eddie Foreman. Dana Miller.
Yes.
Motion passed.
With no items removed from the consent agenda, we'll move on to appearances or petitions from the audience. Our first guest will be Zach McLemore from CVAC Fibers. Man, I'm struggling today. I was awake at 2:40 this morning and haven't had a nap.
Oh, my goodness.
So I'm kind of struggling.
So, just want to give you all a quick update. I don't know if y'all saw the article that the producer did about us coming in, but we were very appreciative of them. Lots of support coming from the city, and that's always welcomed, especially when you're kind of the new guy in town, even though we've been around for quite some time. So, this is now the time. We're actually, over this next week and everything, our installers will be reaching out to anyone that lives in that central zone. So from Milt Phillips to Ideal, and start getting everything scheduled. So if you know anyone that has not signed up as of yet, now is the time so that you can get on there and you're not gonna be at the bottom of the list. We do appreciate everything y'all have done as we're kind of bringing this to a close. We still have a little bit of work to do, on some of the other sides of town and everything, but, you know, it's coming to fruition. We've had a lot of discussions about this, and I'm glad to be able to stand up here and announce that. We did our ACP thing at the library earlier, so if y'all weren't able to attend that, we are participating in the Affordable Connectivity Program, which provides up to $75 for anyone that qualifies. One of those qualifications being if you have a child in your household that receives free or reduced lunches, they can qualify for that through the Affordable Connectivity Program. So we're proud to be a sponsor with the city, and we thank you for all of y'all's support. Of course, if there's ever any questions, you can direct them my way, or just come up, stop by the office, and we'll be glad to see you.
I'm still waiting for the hatched area to get over where I live. It'll happen.
It'll happen.
Any questions, any comments?
On I've got the- my
house covered.
Go ahead.
The Affordable Care Program, you said $75. I know when I was signing up, there were different levels.
Right.
What's like the lowest level amount?
So our base package is 150 megabits per second, and that's $65.
So
they
essentially,
can-
you could get it at no cost.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Mhm.
Thank you.
So that's at no cost. 1 gig would make, and I would make it $10 if they qualify for that program.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next guest is Jamie Carter.
It is Steve's fault. You made me sign
I saw him out soliciting.
I am gonna go ahead and talk, since you guys are talking so much about water and sewer. First of all, I wanna say Bryant Baker and his crew are amazing. They have tried to help me out so much. But I wanna tell you guys not to forget about the water lines down on Milt Phillips. They're terrible, and I don't have drinkable water at my Milt Phillips office. If you don't believe me, I have a picture on my phone. So we filled up a water jug to water our plants and then got busy and forgot about it. Came back about 3 o'clock and there's 1.5 inches of sediment in the bottom of the pitcher. So I feel like we're in a pretty good area. We have lending, real estate, and insurance right in a row, and none of our businesses have drinkable water. I got a lecture about old water lines. I can tell you that Cole Plumbing, that I ripped everything out of that building, 100% of that building is brand new, all the way up to the city meters. So it's not me. And you can call Wade and verify that, but everything that I put in that building back in February of last year is ruined. My toilets, my sinks, my hot water tank. I don't know about you guys, but I can't afford to replace that every year. I'm a little bit of a neat freak, so it just drives me insane. So if you have extra money, don't forget about us, because it's pretty bad. And when you get people coming into town, I send them to the bank. It's on the north side of me. I send them to the insurance. It's on the south side of me. Everybody asks me, is this how the water smells in Seminole? And when you wash your hands, you have a film. So I keep Germex out there because they want to wash their hands again. So don't forget about us, because it's pretty bad. It's bad.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we will move on to approvals and acceptances. Under bid surplus, item 1, consideration and possible action to approve declaring a surplus of following vehicles and accepting bids. 2008 Crown Vic, VIN number 1568, and 2006 Chevy Silverado, VIN number 2478.
Move approval.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Tim Poplin,
Yes.
Corey Crabtree,
Yes.
Larry Church,
Yes.
Trace Connor,
Yes.
Chris Anson,
Yes.
Eddie Foreman,
Yes.
Dana Miller.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Under bids, purchases, item 2, consideration and possible action to approve a sole bid of $3,617 from Heavy Build Manufacturing for a 125-gallon sprayer for the cemetery, a budgeted capital improvement project for fiscal year 2023 and 2024. Move approval.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Tim Poplin,
Yes.
Corey Crabtree,
Yes.
Larry Church,
Yes.
Trace Connor,
Yes.
Chris Anson,
Yes.
Eddie Foreman,
Yes.
Dana Miller.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item 3, consideration and possible action to approve the state bid price of $17,846.50 from Industrial Truck Equipment for a 300-gallon sprayer combination unit, a budgeted capital improvement project for fiscal year 2023-2024.
I have a question.
Please.
So someone's gonna have to explain to me why a sprayer, I guess the price difference? Are they the same thing? No.
No.
Okay.
So the sprayer is going to actually double in severe icing conditions, the big industrial sprayer. The smaller one is for the cemetery that's going to be doing some treatment. We tried to do double duty on it this year and spray the cemetery out of the sprayer that it didn't design for that. And if you've been to the cemetery in the last few days, it is scorched earth, and we're not happy about that. So we're going to dedicate a sprayer so that cemetery remains pristine, and we want it to look nice. But the bigger unit is going to have multiple applications, from all kinds of killing weeds and also the salt and brine for inclement weather.
Okay, thank you. So there were efforts to combine the uses and save money, it just didn't work out.
Yeah, that
Okay.
didn't work, so.
All right, thank you.
I backed them off of that.
Thank you.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Tim Poplin,
Yes.
Corey Crabtree,
Yes.
Larry Church,
Yes.
Trace Connor,
Yes.
Chris Anson,
Yes.
Eddie Foreman,
Yes.
Dana Miller.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item 4, consideration and possible action to approve Silver Star Construction pricing of $403,732.25 for street repairs and resurfacing on Main Street from Seminole to Strother, and on Hoover from Coolidge to Harding, a capital improvement project budgeted for $400,000 for fiscal year 2023-2024. We're gonna be a little over budget.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Corey Crabtree.
Yes.
Larry Church,
Yes.
Trace Connor,
Yes.
Chris Anson,
Yes.
Eddie Foreman,
Yes.
Dana Miller.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item 5, consideration and possible action to approve the bid of $24,496 for Mission Critical Uplift, Inc. for emergency equipment to be installed on a new Ford F-150 at the police department, a budgeted capital improvement project for fiscal year 2023-2024.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Corey Crabtree.
Yes.
Larry Church.
Yes.
Trace Connor.
Yes.
Chris Anson.
Yes.
Eddie Foreman.
Yes.
Dana Miller.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item 6, consideration and possible action to approve the sole bid of $20,800 from Tri-County Heat and Air LLC for the installation of 2 HVAC units at the Heritage House, a 100% reimbursable community development block grant.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Corey Crabtree.
Yes.
Larry Church.
Yes.
Trace Connor.
Yes.
Chris Anson.
Yes.
Eddie Foreman.
Yes.
Dana Miller.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Under Resolutions, item 7, consideration and possible action to approve resolution number 2023-15, a resolution transferring excess general fund budget funds of $212,822.76 to departments with budget shortfalls and appropriating additional budget funds of $8,824.44 to departments with budget shortfalls as evidenced by the budget amendment workshop. Motion to approve. Second. Roll call, please.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Corey Crabtree.
Yes.
Larry Church.
Yes.
Trace Connor.
Yes.
Chris Anson.
Yes.
Eddie Foreman.
Yes.
Dana Miller.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item 8, consideration and possible action to approve resolution number 2023-16, a resolution concerning bridge inspection responsibility by local government for compliance with national bridge inspection standards. So, reading through all those requirements listed in there,
Well, it's fun.
it's paid for, it looks like, from my understanding. The feds are gonna pay for it, but you have to make sure you do certain things as usual. Do you think that would be something you would piggyback on, the same one that the county might use? Or have you even looked at anything yet on who might do this?
We could look at it, but it would be a different contract, I'm positive.
Yeah.
Bryant, do you have any insight from ODOT on any of that?
For the last 5 times that we've done this, we piggyback off the county. It's an inspector that we've used for the last 10 years. We do this every 2 years.
Mhm.
Same thing as what we did last year.
Okay.
No cost to us.
Yeah. Thank you.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Corey Crabtree.
Yes.
Larry Church.
Yes.
Trace Connor.
Yes.
Chris Anson.
Yes.
Eddie Foreman.
Yes.
Dana Miller.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Under Resolutions 8A, consideration and possible action to approve resolution number 2023-17, a resolution approving an interlocal cooperative agreement with the District Attorney's Office for the 22nd prosecutorial, my mouth does not want to say that word, district to participate in the district's multi-jurisdictional drug and violent crime task force. And to help us understand that, we have our guest, Eric Johnson here, our district attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Carter, how are you doing?
Doing great.
Brad was my commanding officer in the National Guard at one point in my distinguished military career, and it's good to see you again.
Well, I hope he treated you well.
He
so
did.
you get paid back.
He did.
We won't talk about his performance.
No, Mayor, thank you. In my former life, in my private practice, I was a city councilor, municipal attorney, everywhere from Pitcher Carton in the far northeastern corner of the state. When I lived up in Miami, I was city attorney in Miami for 8 years. When I moved to Ada 12 years ago, I was city attorney for Bing, Kanawha, Hugo. So I've sat in thousands of hours of council meetings over 24 years in practice, and this meeting is very well run, and it looks like y'all are doing an excellent job based upon what I see on the agenda and some of the improvements that you're making in the community. So I love to see that, because I love good government. That's one of my, I feel like that's one of my roles as a district attorney, is to provide an environment where good government can flourish. And so in that regard, I would like to just briefly give an update on some of the things that the district attorney's office has done. I took office January 3rd, and the DA's office in District 22 looks a lot different than it did a year ago. There's some new personnel. I've hired a couple of new prosecutors, one that is specifically devoted to handling civil matters for our countywide publicly elected officials, which this district's never had before. So sometimes civil issues would sit on an assistant DA's desk, and it becomes a white elephant, because that's the last thing that a young prosecutor that wants to be arguing criminal matters in court wants to address, is a bridge contract for the county. But we now have a fully devoted civil attorney, Christina Phillips, that has been all through Seminole and Hughes counties and in Pontotoc County as well. We had no investigators other than a bogus check investigator in Seminole County when I came on board, and we have now hired 2 investigators in Pontotoc County, one of which is our district violent crimes investigator. His name's Doug Parker. He spent 23 years with the Oklahoma City Police Department, 17 years as the lead investigator on their Crimes Against Children and Special Victims Unit, and then the last 5 years as on the Homicide Task Force for the Oklahoma City Police Department. He's highly experienced, and he's been involved in all aspects of any homicide that you know of, that you've read about. Doug Parker's got his fingerprints on right now, including one that recently occurred in Seminole. I've just recently hired an investigator to replace a retiring investigator in the Wovoka office. And we are doing what is called an ICAC unit in Seminole County. So that I've got a small grant that we're going to utilize to buy, they're basically specialty computers that allows an investigator to it's an Internet Crimes Against Children unit. So obviously those computers have to be specially firewalled off the state network, because obviously those units contain images of child pornography, and I mean, it's everywhere. But we get tips from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children that nationally monitors IP addresses that download that type of imagery. And previously in our district, we haven't had the resources to work those unless it was just wrapped in a bow and put in an investigator's lap. We haven't had the investigative capability. We truly hadn't had the technological capabilities. But I've got almost 1,000 square feet across the hall from me in the Wovoka office, and I'm putting what's going to be I haven't named it yet, but it's going to be a kids center. Our ICAC unit's going to be there. We're going to have a hoteled office for child welfare workers and law enforcement that's working on children's cases. We're going to start having our multidisciplinary task force meetings there, which is MDT, is comprised of anybody that's involved in a criminal investigation involving a child that's been physically or sexually abused. The MDT meets once a month and staffs those cases. We're going to start doing them there across the hall from the DA's office. It's better than doing it in the back room of a Mexican restaurant or at a facility that has more public access to it. So, and we're also soliciting bids to put in closed circuit technology so that a child can testify there in Seminole and Hughes County instead of having to go into a courtroom. So that's going to be a really neat deal we're doing, and then we're going to do some grant coordination out of it. You know, you'll hear me talk. You might not have heard me talk yet. I mean, I have been able to speak to the Seminole Rotary, I believe, and I'll talk about the DA's office anywhere I go. So unfortunately, you're kind of captive, but just for another couple minutes. But kids are the most important thing. I tell people in every talk that I have is that if my office can't protect a kid that's been physically abused or sexually abused, then nobody can. And so I'm responsible for the well-being of every child from Dustin to Stonewall and in between. And in that vein, I became DA-elect last April 28th, and in May 11th was, May 21st or May 11th, I'm sorry. May 11th, I believe, was the Uvalde shooting. So right after that, I convened meetings of law enforcement across the board to talk about what the law enforcement response is going to be to that particular event and what is the status of our school safety plans. And I didn't know the answer to that, but I felt as the DA-elect, it was my responsibility to know, so now I know. I've had, recently, in April, I had a school safety forum at Seminole State for all building superintendents, school resource officers, superintendents, in Hughes and Seminole counties. And we had about 50 attendees there, and it was very well attended by Seminole schools. And you guys are lucky here. You've got some great representatives and great administration in Seminole schools. I mean, maybe you don't think that. I don't know what environment I'm speaking in, but man, I was highly impressed with some of the people that were there. And so I think they're in good hands. And they had a really strong hold on what their school safety plan was going to be. We've done the same thing in Pontotoc County at the Technology Center. But school safety, and then and a companion to that is truancy issue. I reinitiated the district attorney's truancy program, which had been laying dormant for about 4 years, in large part because of COVID and some other circumstances. But I'm fairly aggressive about it. I mean, obviously, if a third grader's missing school, the parents more than likely have an alcohol and drug abuse problem, and there's probably a lot of chaos in the home. If it's a sophomore that's missing school, that might need to be handled a little bit differently. You might have a single mom that might have lost control of their ability to get their child into school. So it needs to be handled differently, but it needs to be handled because as superintendents, obviously, that get a lot of their funding off of their average daily attendance, number one, but then number two, they just want the kids there. And I need to have the kids there because a lot of times, kids are missing out on basic nutrition if they're not in school. In that vein, I attended approximately 7 in-services in the last couple of weeks, just with school getting started. And I've asked my teachers to be, they're my eyes and ears, because a lot of times, I'm an involved parent. I have 4 kids. I'm an involved parent. Not every one of my kids' teachers spends more time with them than I get the opportunity to do on a daily basis. And so I think if you're not an involved parent, or if you're a parent that's lost in drug and alcohol abuse or crime or whatever, you just don't have any space in your heart for that kid in a lot of circumstances. And so teachers have to be that kind of first line of defense for us. And unfortunately, that's not in their job description, but it is, because those kids, they see those kids every day, and I need to know about it. So I talk to them about the duty to report, and talk to them about, they want to hear that, yeah, there's white noise from Oklahoma City, and it's getting politicized, but I've got their back. My office has their back, and the superintendents are very excited to have the truancy program back. In fact, I met with the Chickasaw Nation today because one of the holes that I had in the truancy program was previously, if a child had a CDIB card, yeah, I could get on them about being in school, but if they have a CDIB card, then that doesn't apply to them. But the Chickasaw Nation has been very aggressive about the truancy program, and they're a very good partner with me. But just because I know them, and I live in Ada, and the Chickasaw Nation's headquartered there, but they've adopted truancy codes. They've hired truancy coordinators. They're going to have a separate truancy court, and so that will apply within the Chickasaw Nation. And obviously, that's not in Seminole County, but it is in 13 counties in the Chickasaw Nation that they'll be able to address any tribal child that is missing school. Well, Seminole County, once the Chickasaws get it going, I can get Seminole County to get it going, I can get Creeks to get it going, and that's how we address the truancy issue there. So that's been a really good thing. I am, in conjunction with this kids center that I'm putting up in Seminole County, I've had to redesign our MDTs, our multidisciplinary task force, to make sure that there's no gaps where kids that have been perpetrated on don't fall through the cracks. Previously, law enforcement in Seminole County, and I've had this conversation with Chief Withers, the law enforcement, if they had a child that had been physically or sexually abused, they'd take that child to the Children's Advocacy Center in Shawnee. And that's not my district's child advocacy center. My district's, every prosecutorial district has an advocacy center, and ours is in Ada. But I need that to be the tip of my funnel, because every child that is affected, I need them to go there so that we have, basically can index them and address their issues and provide them the services that they need and the evidence I need to put the bad guys in prison. So we've got that going now, and that's been very well received by law enforcement. Getting down to now the reason why I'm here tonight on this interlocal. Chris Ayers is your investigator. He actually, Gabe Wynn, who's another detective for Seminole Police Department, I just wanted to put a shout out. He testified for me today in a really ugly case in Seminole County and did an excellent job. It's the first time he's testified as a case agent, so he did an excellent job today. But Chris Ayers, who also testified today, but just in a much shorter extent of time, you're very lucky to have him. He's a highly experienced investigator and does an excellent job. He's been on District 22's task force pursuant to a previous agreement. I don't know if it was previously approved by the Seminole City Council, but what I'm asking for is a resolution to improve his placement on my task force. And the way I want that to work is this. I've got 2 full-time employees that are my drug and violent crime task force agents, and that's Adam Good and Chris Pertee. And so they're full-time employees that work for me, and then I have my 3 investigators that are tasked out in my offices. What I want is the same thing is going to go on the Ada City Council agenda on September 18th to put on Detective Marcus Beal onto our task force. Chris Ayers obviously being on our task force, but I am asking you to approve the resolution, approving the interlocal agreement, because I'm asking all the councils that is putting an agent on my task force to know what, kind of what the rules are. It's only fair for you to know what I'm asking of you to do. And then Holdenville approved putting on Chief Kyle Lenning about 2 weeks ago. So he's been a very excellent police chief up there in Holdenville, and he's going to be serving us on our task force. So that gives me an officer from each one of my law enforcement agencies, municipal law enforcement agencies in each county, which I think is a good thing. What do we do on the task force? Well, obviously we're the main barrier against drug operations in District 22. So most of our investigations are more longer term. They're more on the distribution or trafficking side. We're doing a lot of fentanyl cases right now. We work well with law enforcement agencies on the federal level. So like I've got an agent that's ATF certified. I got another agent that's Safe Trail certified through the FBI. So we have all their resources. Basically that's all they're doing right now is drug crimes or violent crimes related to the drug trade. Trafficking, human trafficking, there's a lot of the human trafficking issues with that OBN's generally handling because, but there's a lot of trafficking relative to, the illegal marijuana industry. So this is my task force that I work with on a daily, and I feel like they're doing really good work. I told my people on January 3rd when I took office that it was my intention to run the best DA's office in the state. I feel like I'm doing that. I'd stack us up against anybody now. I don't have any weak links. And now we just go out there and kick bad guys in the teeth and try to do as good a job as possible for the citizenry that puts us in office and has confidence in us. And, I try to be transparent. I'll appreciate the opportunity that you gave me to come before your city council, and this won't be the last time you see me. Fortunately, I don't know hardly anybody in here. Maybe that's a good thing. You don't want to. Maybe you don't want to know the DA's office. Ms. Miller, you understand why I cut you, right?
Yeah.
Ms. Miller was going to be on the jury, but I couldn't have her because she was an elected official and, ostensibly signing the paychecks of officers, so I couldn't have that, for the appearance of conflict. But anyways, that's all I have, ladies and gentlemen, but I'd be glad to answer any questions about the particular document.
Well, I would like to give you kudos for trying to get all those involved with dealing with the kids into an area so they can communicate. So many times we see everyone on an island and then they have to try to figure out, well, where do I go with this? How do I get this done? And with being in the same area, it makes communication a lot quicker and a lot easier as well. So I think that's a great plan. I do have a question. So we used to see, I think it was just drug and violent crime task force, but now, I mean, obviously with all the kids being involved, that covers that area as well. And I know when we had someone that you have on your employee list used to work here, I know they dealt with some of those children's crimes. And, you know, it seemed like before it was maybe that's something that was handled here and then you handled, or someone else handled it. And is it now going to be more, if we find something out here, is it going to run through your section, or will it still be handled some here on an individual basis?
The way that child crimes have to work is it has to be a team approach. You can't be, a law enforcement unit cannot, I totally discourage that. This is my purview, my kingdom, my domain. Because there's so many resources across the board, and part of my job is to make sure that those resources and everybody's working together, and that's why my Children Advocacy Center in Ada is so important, because I have to get, part of my job in the last several months even has been educating all aspects of law enforcement on what the Children's Advocacy Center does. Because a lot of the law enforcement didn't even know about it. And, you know, if you send your case up to Shawnee, then my district might not find out about that case, unfortunately, because a law enforcement officer, if a Conemaugh officer takes a case up, a child abuse case up to Shawnee, then that Conemaugh officer transfers to another agency outside of the district, and that case is up there, and, you know, it's just, I can't ever risk that. So part of my job is to make sure that all my agencies are sending to one central point, so one tip of the funnel. You know, and then everywhere I go and when I talk to them, you know, I don't want officers. I mean, it's a natural inclination for the sheriff's department to want to eat over at this restaurant and the city police to eat over at this restaurant. But I don't want that if I can avoid that. And so part of my job is to provide Doug Parker, who is an expert on investigating crimes against children and violent crimes and homicides. He's a resource, and he's been on. I know that he's been over to the Seminole Police Department. He's in Seminole Nation. You know, he's a resource that my office provides for all law enforcement. Another example is I just purchased a program called Cellbrite that allows me to break cell phones. Well, you know, in a child in a pornography investigation or in a large-scale drug trafficking operation, it doesn't do any good to have a cell phone that I can get the OSBI to break in 30 days. I need to know the information on that phone within an hour. And so my office just spent $35,000 on a grant that we have, but that resource is now available to every law enforcement agency in District 22. And so that's how you build a team approach. And then a lot of it's sometimes just force of personality. I mean, it's hard to, I don't really accept no for an answer, and I have to have negativity justified. So I talk to law enforcement constantly, and I feel like I got everybody at least in the same chapter, definitely in the same book, maybe not on the same page, but we're pretty close. And you know, you're always going to have that between agencies. And I'm sorry I'm taking up time, but that's how I feel it has to be. I'm a huge believer in community policing and getting everybody pulling in the same direction, the same end of the road. But so you only can do that by example.
Well, don't apologize for the time, because that's important stuff.
Well, no,
I
I could talk about this for hours, obviously. I mean, it's the mission of the DA's office is first and foremost to protect children, then protect old people, and then everybody else. And you know, people that can't fight for themselves. And you know, we're very proactive on what we do and working with our law enforcement. You know, we have one of the largest law enforcement departments in the district just by the nature of who we have on our task force, and then with my office investigators. And you know, we can go everywhere. You know, I can go anywhere in the state to do an investigation, whereas, you know, normally officers are limited to their jurisdiction. So,
anybody have any other questions or comments?
Of course.
Yes, sir.
I can't overemphasize the importance of what you're doing. I was head nurse at Children's Hospital inpatient unit. We took prepubescent children. And as I was telling you earlier, if there's anything that you can imagine horrific that can be done to a child, someone's doing it right now.
Yes, sir. It's my life's mission. I mean, it's, I'm gonna do this for the next, unless the creek's rise, but I mean, I'll be doing this for the next 20 years. You'll be seeing me for.
That's where many of the victims ended up when I was working there. And we, for example, we had one child there that had been a nude dancer in the back bars of Oklahoma City since before she was 2 years old.
Yeah.
And, I mean, if you can imagine it, someone's doing it to a child right now, and that needs to be stopped. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I can attest there is a new enthusiasm throughout the district and all these district attorneys' offices. I've been there myself, and there's new prosecutors, there's young aggressive prosecutors that are really, really committed to what they're doing. I see them all the time. It truly is a kind of a new era, you know, in our district. So I mean, I commend Eric because it's something that, you know, it's hard to get something like that done in today's, you know, today's world. But this particular agreement is a foundation that we need to continue to support and approve so that we can continue. His office is the clearinghouse, and when you've got that hub right there, it really does increase efficiency, and it does a lot better as far as, you know, doing what needs to be done. So.
I would just like to congratulate you on your new position. Thank you for what's coming across right now is your enthusiasm for collaboration.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's where success in any endeavor lies. So thank you for that. I just had a quick question. Are you working with Seminole Nation as well?
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
I've met with, right now, we're conducting a murder investigation in conjunction with the Seminole Nation. I've had meetings with Chief Coker and Assistant Chief Tallahassee on several occasions. One of my new investigative hires in my office was one of their lead patrolmen, or patrolwoman, Kim Ward. I don't know if anybody knows her, but she's highly aggressive and right down my alley. And then, you know, Seminole County just got Anthony Louis. I think that Seminole, you know, people have a tendency that they see what's going on and they read the bad stuff in the paper, but there's a lot of good stuff going on.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's going to be a good thing. I feel very positive about the direction and leadership of the Seminole County Sheriff's Department.
Thank
So,
you.
yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Can I switch gears
Thanks, sir.
to less serious? You know, I know you see a lot of bad stuff, but if you really wanted to hone your skills, I'm going to issue a challenge.
Yes, sir.
Between you and the mayor. We're hosting a murder mystery dinner to see who can determine who done it first, okay?
All right.
October 14th, there'll be a murder mystery.
Is this a chamber event?
This is actually a library.
Library.
Oh, okay.
So-
Awesome.
Well, I would have to forfeit because I'm not available that night.
That may be OU Texas weekend.
Yeah, well, that's, and I will say thank you for approving the bid for heavy built manufacturer. That's my father-in-law's overhead tank business down in Colgate. I was surprised to see his name on there. So, anyways, that's all I have, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so we have item 8A on the table.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Tim Poplin,
Yes.
Corey Crabtree. Yes. Larry Church.
Yes.
Grace Connor.
Yes.
Chris Anson.
Yes.
Eddie Foreman.
Yes.
Dana Miller.
Yes.
Motion passes.
8B, consideration and possible action to approve resolution number 2023-18, a resolution approving the incurring of indebtedness of the Seminole Municipal Authority for the purpose of providing an evaluation survey of the City of Seminole sanitary sewer system and declaring an emergency. We will deal with the emergency in the next clause, so we're just passing the
Motion to approve. Second.
roll call, please.
Tim Poplin,
Yes, sir.
Corey Crabtree,
Yes.
Larry Church,
Yes.
Trace Connor,
Yes.
Chris Anson,
Yes.
Eddie Foreman,
Yes.
Dana Miller.
Yes.
Motion passes.
8C, consideration and possible action to approve the emergency clause associated with resolution number 2023-18.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Tim Poplin,
Yes.
Corey Crabtree.
Yes.
Larry Church.
Yes.
Trace Connor.
Yes.
Chris Anson.
Yes.
Eddie Foreman.
Yes.
Dana Miller.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Under current business, item 9, discussion and possible action regarding the Oyler Park baseball field.
Okay, so let me bring you up to speed. We've had meetings with the Seminole State College athletic director, the president, the baseball coach, et cetera. And it has been determined that the Seminole State College will no longer lease the baseball field. So the maintenance of that facility now comes back to the city. And unfortunately, we're really good at controlling grass, sometimes killing it, but we're not very good at making it look like a baseball field. So I did want to bring it back to the city council and see what your wishes were. And we'll obviously, we'll carry out what you guys want. But I think with the condition that it's in after the tornado, I think probably the best thing to do is start all over, and let's take that thing to the ground. Now, just so everybody understands, there are actually, the building next to the baseball field is still owned by Seminole State College. And what we would be responsible for is everything outside of that building and south. So we're talking about the bleachers, the field itself, and the fencing. So they're going to, for the time being, they're going to keep the building. They are discussing about selling that building, but that hasn't hit their regents level meeting yet, but they're going to be talking about that. So
So, I mean, the bleachers are not really in very good shape.
that's an understatement.
I
Yes.
mean, the fencing was damaged by the tornado, lights were destroyed. I mean, it's just gonna sit there and be an eyesore if we
Right.
leave it standing.
Unless we convert it to a driving range. I think there's no better spot available. There's a lot of people who don't come to our golf course to play golf because you can't warm up.
When
And
you're
if you-
talking to a golfer, I'm not gonna argue with you.
Yeah, good.
I'm not gonna put in my 2 cents worth on this.
Oh, okay. But I think that that's the only place that is available for us to have a workable driving range for our municipal golf course. We've got a good course. We've spent a lot of money on it. I mean, where else can you put one? And that would be a great place for it. It's gonna be dead weight, is what I hear you're saying, as it is right now. We could turn it into something that could be profitable for our city.
You can't hit a driver farther than that fence?
Well, sure, but I don't need to hit a driver to warm up. Or I can hit it into a fence.
Yeah.
I've been to lots and lots of driving ranges that I can hit the end of it with the 6-iron. So, we need it. And I think it'd make us money overall for our golf course and for our city.
I'm not completely against that. I'm not sure it's big enough, but I would also like to throw out there that our youth council last time presented the idea of wanting an amphitheater, and that may be a good spot to have an amphitheater also.
Yeah.
So the first thing would be determine, are we gonna tear things down?
Right.
And allocate at some point funds for that, if that's the direction we're gonna go. But I don't see how you leave it standing. I mean, one, it's a risk, maybe of someone getting injured, getting in there
Mhm.
and getting hurt. And,
Well, everything's bad, isn't it? I mean, even the bathrooms are bad, I mean, nothing's really usable on it as it is. So you almost have to start from the ground up, whatever it is, it's gonna have to go.
So the bathrooms are relatively new. 8 years-ish, 7 or 8 years.
Pipes underneath
Yeah,
or something.
the foundation, the Seminole State College Foundation and some private donors put together and built new restrooms. So I would anticipate, being that there's a need for bathrooms out there, that we might leave those standing for the time being and tear everything else around it if you wish.
We can do that in-house, correct? Tear down?
I think so, yes.
Wasn't there something wrong with the pipes underneath or something? I mean, what was the issue with that?
Yeah, underneath the stadium itself, the sewer line that comes out of the building will need to be replaced. Now, once that's removed, I'm gonna project that that's not gonna be a big task. Doing it while the stadium's still standing proved to be a monumental task.
Steve, I have a question on you said Seminole State's keeping that building, is that their workout building, that that aluminum metal building?
Yes,
Okay, so they're keeping that, but everything else is ours again, correct?
that's correct.
So is that building, is that on our city property?
Yes.
Then how do they get to retain just that alone and give up the part they don't want? Shouldn't they give it all back to us? Could they give it all back to us?
Yeah, so that was approached, and I think they feel like they raised the money to build it, so they need to have something coming back to them for that.
I feel like it's the taxpayers' property and we should
would-
get reimbursed for it.
Yeah, I'm gonna beg forgiveness. That was done long before I got here, and I'm sure there were some handshakes understandings that were arrived at, but I can't speak to it.
The next question is, do we have first option to buy that building over anyone else?
I believe we do, yes. Yeah, so,
Well, if it's on our property, how do we buy it?
yeah. So I would think
Are
of
they gonna
it,
take the building with them? And just leave the foundation? It's ours, right?
I would say it's similar in the way that we fashioned the Enviro Systems lease. Enviro Systems is actually on city property, but they make all the improvements on it, and obviously, when they sell it, they sell only the improvement, not the land underneath. So I think this would be treated something in the same vein, that they made the improvement, they still have value in the improvement, although we own the dirt.
So when they sell it, we need to redo a new lease with the new owner for leasing the property, correct?
Yes.
Well, there's lots of precedent for this. That's why McDonald's is the largest landowner in the world. It's because that's how they control the leasees.
Well, again, the college just leased the ball field from the city.
Mhm.
We don't have an agreement on the building property where it says, this is just the ball field that they were leasing.
So they have a separate lease for the building?
I don't
The
know.
property,
Probably
no.
not even
We've
leased.
No.
not been
That's
able to
my
locate it.
point.
There may have been at some point, and it got buried in archives, or, we don't know. We've not been able to locate the lease agreement, unless,
Look at the
Sharon, have you
title
found
work
it
on that.
recently?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, how you can get title work on something that you didn't even own the land to build it on, and you never had a lease?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
That's why I say This goes
I
back to
mean-
the city too.
That would be a second.
They're
issue
good
that-
partners. We,
I'm
We
not
do.
questioning whether or not they're good partners. I'm just saying if we're looking at options to utilize that area, that building could be a selling, like if we're looking for an amphitheater, that'd be a great place to have, a concession stand or something. I don't know. But if we don't have access to that, or if somehow it's an impediment to us utilizing that area that's better for the entire city, that's I'm not saying they're a bad partner. I'm just questioning what do we have an option to utilize in that area.
I think it would behoove us to own the building if it works out at the end, and I would think there would be some sort of comparable trade or something, I
Sure.
mean, we just helped, build the new complex, where they're relocating to, and the reasons that they may be, or the reason they're leaving the space to begin with. So I would think could probably something worked out, but, of course, that's completely up to the regents and what they're willing to do with this.
I would think regardless of whatever happens, if there's no longer a lease even for the ballpark, someone needs to write something up just for that liability to be shifted their direction, because we don't use it. So for any kind of liability for that piece of property in that building, even if you write a lease that says you're not paying us anything a year, we just need to designate that you're using this building or you're using this much of the property, and that's your responsibility for liability reasons, if nothing else.
they do carry insurance on the
They do,
building.
yeah. And it's listed there, but nothing stops someone from claiming something on their policy as well as ours, because there's some liability there.
Roger.
That's all
Yeah.
I'm saying.
At the very least, we should be named as an additional insured or something.
Yeah. I mean, you can do that, but it's not as, I think you'd rather have a liability their direction. Just state it in paper so that you can't go both directions.
And I think that, and I'm not in real estate, but I would think that location where that building is does have quite a bit of value to it. So, if there was an opportunity to give that lease to someone else or someone who would actually pay us for it, maybe so we can get water line fixed or so we could do other things with it, I would like to explore that as well. But I know that we're not talking about that today, but I would just like for us to maybe look further into that.
It was mentioned during our meeting with them. There were two regents there, and it was mentioned that the city would like to have that building. But I think they feel like there's value in that. And frankly, I think they're a little bit concerned about paying the debt that they've got on the new facility out there. So they're trying to think of ways that they can raise money to do that. That was never voiced, that was my take, okay? That's just my opinion.
Yeah, and I would conversely say the city needs to look for ways to bring in more revenue too. So, I like the idea of looking at what the youth council brought to us, but I would also like some time to take it back to our constituents and just kind of ask them. So what is the turnaround on this, or is there a time?
There is no turnaround. Are we talking about the baseball field or the
Mhm.
facility?
Baseball field.
There, frankly, we already ordered the material to fix the fence, and this was a last-minute deal before we started. They said, hold up, we need to talk. And so we're not in any hurry, other than it looks really bad driving through our park, and we want to clean it up. In light of the golf tournaments that are now being held on your new greens that you built, I hate that those people that are coming to be impressed by our golf course have to drive by that. So as soon as you can, I'd love to tear it down or repair it. You decide, but we need to make it look better.
I hate that they come here and can't warm up before they play, that we don't have a driving range.
Before we get to the driving range, I say clean it up. I would just take it down. We don't want to
Yeah.
spend $100,000 on repairing it if it's really not repairable.
Right.
So we're looking for a motion or no motion. We're just,
Just discussions.
impossible action.
I would vote to go ahead and do the necessary
Clean up,
cleanup, taking it down. getting it out
demo,
of the way, and
yeah.
then the use and whatever else we're gonna do with it, we can decide at a later date, but
So is that a motion?
Has it been determined that we can tear it down ourselves, though? I mean, because I know you can have
No,
issues with some of that.
no. Actually, I'm sitting here thinking, I don't know that we can fell the light poles safely. That might be something that we need help with, that I would have to come back to you for money to do.
So do we need to authorize you out for bids, or can you do bids for stuff like that without us doing it?
I think authorize me to demolish what we can and come back if there are other items to be bid.
that's my motion.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Corey Crabtree.
Yes.
Larry Church.
Yes.
Trace Connor.
Yes.
Chris Anson.
Yes.
Eddie Foreman.
Yes.
Dana Miller.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item 10, consideration and possible action to approve renaming Veterans Park to Veterans Memorial as recommended by the Park Board.
Where's Veterans Park?
Right across the street.
Oh, across the street. Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Corey Crabtree.
Yes.
Larry Church.
Yes.
Trace Connor.
Yes.
Chris Anson.
Yes.
Eddie Foreman.
Yes.
Dana Miller.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item 11, consideration and possible action to approve committing funding in the amount of $3,580 towards the cost of a mural under consideration by the Seminole Arts Council from fiscal year 2023-24 capital improvement project funds designated for public beautification.
Is there someone that can describe this project for us?
There may be someone in the crowd that could do that.
I think,
Let me check.
all right, good idea. Thank you.
This mock-up that we had done is a digital mock-up. It's gonna be located on the Farmers Insurance Building on Broadway. We have an agreement for maintenance and oversight of the mural between the property owner and the Arts Council. So the Arts Council is responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of the mural. She's just hosting it. She's agreed not to paint over it or deface it without coming through us first. If she has any issues with it, she's gonna let us know and let us handle that. But that's it. The overall price is actually $7,160, and we're asking city council to match us 50%.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Corey Crabtree.
Yes.
Larry Church.
Yes.
Trace Connor.
Yes.
Chris Anson.
Yes.
Eddie Foreman.
Yes.
Dana Miller.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item 12, consideration and possible action to approve Miller Tippin as construction manager for the design and construction of the Family Entertainment Center.
Is this the group with experience that you mentioned before?
Yes, they have, yes, they've done some bowling alley type facilities. They were, in our opinion, they were the most responsive. We felt like we had three that were really good. And in the end, this one, after we checked all the references and looked at who was actually going to be on the job site, the way that they work with the architect that you hired, this was the clear winner.
One of the jobs they did was Shawnee Hospital, was it? The addition, was that?
Man, I looked through so,
Oh, I looked through them too, and I was thinking that was one that they did, which is very nice.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah.
They've done some
after
really
looking
good
at
work.
enough of them, you're kind of, who did what, for sure.
Right.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Corey Crabtree.
Yes.
Larry Church.
Yes.
Trace Connor.
Yes.
Chris Anson.
Yes.
Eddie Foreman.
Yes.
Dana Miller.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item 13, consideration and possible action to approve emergency repairs totaling $7,858.56 to MTB Race and Repair for a transmission replacement and other repairs to a 2015 Chevy Tahoe and a 2016 Chevy Tahoe in the police department. Is it kind of interesting, we're going to MTB Race and Repair, and it's going to our
Yeah,
police department?
right.
That's
No,
still here.
Now, are we getting two transmissions for 2 vehicles? 1.5.
All in one. It's a racing track.
They last longer, they're just built heavier.
Yeah.
How
Move to
many?
approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Tim Poplin,
Yes.
Corey Crabtree.
Yes.
Larry Church.
Yes.
Trace Connor.
Yes.
Chris Anson.
Yes.
Eddie Foreman.
Yes.
Dana Miller.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item 14, consideration and possible action regarding allowing Seminole Fire Department to purchase a replacement stretcher loading system through a sole source, Stryker Medical, for $49,969.26 after a $2,500 trade-in to be funded from Seminole County EMS tax.
I'm going to let Merrick talk a little bit about the need for this and what it does.
This will be going to replace our oldest stretcher and securing system, which is a 2008 model. Pretty much the entire system itself, from the stretcher all the way to the securing system, is out of service, and it's so old and it's a first generation, we can't get parts for it. So it's pretty much kaput. This is the best and latest, pretty much industry standard brand, so that's what we're going to be going with. It has the best lifting capabilities, and it actually self-lifts into the ambulance, so it's going to save all our firefighters' backs. It'll lift up to 750 pounds unassisted and up to 1,000 with help.
So you even get me on there?
Yep, yep.
All right.
Couple of you.
Well, I'll move to approve that.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Tim Poplin,
Yes, sir.
Corey Crabtree.
Yes.
Larry Church.
Yes.
Trace Connor.
Yes.
Chris Anson.
Yes.
Eddie Foreman.
Yes.
Dana Miller.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item 15, consideration and possible action regarding Seminole EMS future plans for ambulances.
We always operate 4 full-time ambulances ready to go at any time. 3 are always staffed on the road at any time. The 4th one is always our backup to anything, either more calls or backup if one's going in for oil change. Our current backup has over 300,000 miles, and that don't sound very healthy. So we need to look at ordering a new one. The problem is ordering one is 30 to 36 months out lead time on the build from everyone I've called, so.
You said 36 months?
Yeah. 3 years.
So I recall one of the items, a similar item that we bought in the past, came a year early and caught us with a budget. We had to redo our budget a little bit in order to pay it. Are we in a position where we can do that again?
What's the cost on
The
it?
current price for the 2026 pricing is $294,500. When we ordered the last 2 in 2018, they were $208,000.
Well, I would think we'd have at least a year to make some preparation. Next budget, we can appropriate some funds or something, I would think. But
What do they require down?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Pay and pick up.
In 3 years, how many miles you gonna have on it then?
Our 2 current trucks we bought in 2018 both have 60 apiece in them. The one we bought 2 years ago has 25, and our oldest one has over 300. So in 3 years, they're probably gonna have, our 2 that have 60 will probably be close to 100.
So you said it's not sounding healthy. Is that engine?
Yeah,
issues?
it's going to the shop constantly for stuff,
Is there anything
transmission
we can
repairs.
do to replace an engine?
Yeah,
Or
for $15,000, I mean, that'll be the thing we go to next.
To get us 30 months out?
Yeah, and like I said, that's just our backup
Yeah.
now, so I'm just thinking ahead, trying to get something going. And this is going with Osage Ambulance Service, the people we have bought ambulances from for the last 10 years, so.
So
Will we
what
be-
is it that we need to do to act on this, number 15?
Well, it says possible action would be a motion, but I have one more question. So would this come outfitted with the new type of stretcher system?
No.
So that would be added in
Additional
after?
50
so that-
grand.
okay.
It always has
Well,
been on the other ones.
50
so-
grand now.
Yeah,
In 30 months, it would be 70.
yeah.
But you lock in that price if you get it now, right?
The stretcher?
Either one.
No, this price will be locked in. The stretcher, I'll have to order it separately from Stryker again, just like I'm doing this one.
In 3 years, that thing could go up another 30,000 or more.
The ambulances come stock with a universal stretcher plate in them, so that way we're able to mount the securing and loading systems in ourselves. Takes about 15 minutes to put one in.
So for temporary service, the old loading system could be used until we get a new one in, or?
The old one that we're replacing now, no, it's totally out of service.
It's out, okay.
Yeah. So we don't currently have a backup right now.
Okay.
Did we have a part of a sales tax in place to cover stuff like this, like fire trucks and ambulances, or am I thinking of something else?
Yeah, that expired. I don't remember. 7 years ago.
Really?
2010.
It's been that long ago?
Yeah.
Time flies when you have fun.
Yeah.
I know we can't predict
I
the
was
future,
here.
but the EMS tax, how much of that would be able to go toward this? Is that something we can bank, or how?
Yep. In fact, that's what's buying your cot. I think we've got
75 and some change.
75,000 in there now. We're spending 50 on that cot, so I don't,
Give a little
it's not,
relief.
I mean, it's gonna, yeah, if 30 months later, I'm guessing you'll be back up to 70,000 some odd.
The question that I have is, if we say we're gonna order it now, and we don't have to pay for it for 3 years, does it have to go in next year's budget, or does it have to go under this year's budget? Whenever it's ready, a year early.
I'm sorry, say that again? I know but I missed the last part when you,
As far as paying for it,
yes.
uh,
It does not have to go in this year's budget. What we would likely do over the next 2 years is provide a reserve account like you did this year. We'll contribute a piece in the next fiscal year, and then maybe make it whole in 2 years, so that if they deliver it a year early, we're not pinched.
so we got 3 years to work it.
That's the way I would recommend that you work it. You can do it however you want to do it.
Yeah.
And I have until the end of October to lock in this pricing right here.
I move to approve.
Well, we gotta have a motion.
Gotta have a motion.
We're gonna save money.
It just seems a little weird, and I don't know, I mean, I guess you could buy something that far out on account. It seems kind of like committing future councils to pay for something, outside of a year. I mean, how do you even do that without going ahead and budgeting the money and then covering it, or for this year under this current council? How does that work?
Do you still have your medical authority up? Is it?
Yes, it's legal, it's legal.
So we could put it back on the October, end of October?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can put it back on an agenda for the medical authority to do this. And that way, I mean, there's really no money in the medical authority, but you can start appropriating money to put it in there so that it's available at some point.
That would make me feel better, because I just don't see how we can tie a future council's hands under the city council like this. I mean, that seems like, you can't borrow money for,
Right.
No.
Good catch, you bet.
Well, we can give them a building on our city property. Yeah, they just pass it up.
So let's say this.
We're just
know
giving
better
away,
they are.
giving away property might
I
as
know where
well.
those guys were.
So Mayor, if we ordered this,
Deeper,
and
that's
it was
simple.
time for it to be delivered, and the council at that point said, no, we've got a different way, we don't want it, they're probably gonna be able to sell it like that to
The
someone else.
next day.
Yeah. I mean,
There's gonna be.
They're not worried about it at all.
right, yeah,
They get their payments before they put the cement on.
right, right. So, I
They'd
mean,
probably sell ours for more.
yeah,
We could probably make money on it.
so I don't think there's a big issue
Short or
on-
two of
on
them.
that.
Cover the cost.
Yeah, we don't have to pay for it.
All right, so do we want to
7%.
have a motion to move this to next month, or you
Just
just
table
want-
it or no action, and next month we'll stick it on the medical authority.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So no action to be taken on.
Correct. You need that motion?
Do you need a motion to table?
I think take no action.
No action.
Just take no action.
He just said he's gonna ignore 15. We're on to 16.
We did it.
Consideration and possible action to approve the summary abatement of nuisance for 501 North Milt Phillips, also known as Van Sanford Apartments.
They did. We can't find them, can't get in touch with them. We've sent registered mail. We've cited them. No contact. Sharon, do you remember the name?
Joe
Joe Johnson.
Bristow.
Bristow, I think.
Yeah.
Bristow.
But if we do it, a lien will be placed upon the property, is that correct?
That's correct.
I motion that we approve.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Hang on a second. What are we, are we approving the summary abatement? Because there's a lot of findings that's gonna have to be made tonight on this by the council. If you wanna go through the process, we need to do it right.
Let's go through the
Yeah,
process.
let's go through the process. Want this thing down.
Okay.
This is part of the.
So, the first thing, the council, did we have notice to this owner to be here tonight? So you need to make an announcement. If this owner is here, anybody has an interest in the property, they need to, they need to find out if they're present or not tonight. So, I'm assuming that no one's here on this property, so the record will reflect that no one appears on that issue, on this particular agenda item. Second thing that the council needs to find is that the property constitutes a dangerous condition and that a nuisance in fact does exist. The council can do that by statements from city officials that are present here that have particular knowledge of this situation. The reason that you need to know this is because when you summarily abate a nuisance, you can only abate that which is dangerous until the rest of the proceeding can occur and we can handle the rest of it. In other words, if the roof has fallen off, we can take the roof off, leave the building the way it is until we can do what needs to be done. If you find that the whole building is a nuisance, then it is dangerous to the public, safety of the public is at risk, then you can declare the whole thing a nuisance. So the council needs to make findings of that, and the council can do that by questioning any of our city officers that have personal knowledge of that.
So, I would inquire as to what city officials are here, officers that are here that can provide testimony for that. Please come up and.
Wasn't there a letter from the police chief in our packet? Was that from the police chief?
So one of the things that you need to know is that when you are looking at this, there is a definition in our code about dangerous structures and things that are hazardous. And I'll read this to you, the one that I think is applicable for dangerous structures. It's under paragraph 15 of section 826. Dangerous structures, any building or structure which is dangerous to the public health or safety because of damage, decay, or other condition. B, every building or other structure that shall become unsafe and dangerous from fire, decay, or other cause, or shall become hazardous from fire by reason of age, decay, or construction, location, or other cause, or shall be detrimental to the health, safety, or welfare of the city, its inhabitants from any cause, or its inhabitants from any cause. So those are the kind of the standards that you're looking at, and you can listen to the testimony, so to speak, and make any findings that you feel, ask any questions, and then we'll make the appropriate findings.
Wasn't this building, after the tornado, wasn't an engineer, didn't engineers go around and check all of the buildings that were deemed unsafe, and wasn't that one of them?
No, most of them were on Main Street that they checked. There were a few outlying, but this was not one of them.
But has anybody determined its structural safety? other than, I mean, outside of that?
We've been, code enforcement building inspector has been around the building, but as far as an engineer, no, an engineer has not come in and given us a statement whether it is safe or unsafe.
Because in the packet, I believe, we're reading the letter, it did mention that they feel like there are people who are trying to live in the building or staying in the building.
Yes, sir.
And there is a concern that if something happens and the fire department or emergency workers have to go in there, that it, especially if it were a fire, that it could be very unsafe, it could collapse.
Yes, sir. Looking around at the building, our code enforcement is determining that they're climbing the fire escape and getting in on the second floor. So if there were a fire in the building, if there were a danger in the building, they would have to break down the plywood on the first floor to get in, first off. And we've also had code enforcement pick bricks up out of the middle of the street so that look as if they came from that building.
Which
So-
street?
Pardon?
Which street?
Oh, I'm sorry, from Milt Phillips. Amy stopped and picked up 2 bricks out from the street right after work one day.
Do we know if the roof, is it sealed tight so the rain, is it running down into the building? Do we know anything?
Why would they put a roof over the top of it if it wasn't leaking?
In the very first picture that I left some packets of pictures there for you. In the very first one where there's 2 pictures from the drone shots, you can see some of the holes in the roof like hatches in the roof. I would gather with those to say that no, it is not rain tight. And which is, I mean, as far as mold, it's creating that hazard as well.
So if we were to have some type of windstorm, the roof appears to be still dismembered or dismantled or whatever. I mean, it could still fly off. Have they picked up any of the pieces of roof around everywhere? It looks like to me that it's not.
It's waiting to come off. A big wind, it's gonna finish tearing the whole thing off.
Well, that wasn't the first time that roof came off to begin with. And I mean, that's right. Yeah, it had come off before and already been put back on
That was
again.
windstorm.
And, I mean.
I'm
along
surprised
those-
it hadn't come off again.
And along those lines, I mean, you have to imagine that there are rodents, infestation of all sorts of things that make it completely unsafe and probably ever be able to be occupied again at this point.
I would assume that as well. If you're sitting at Sonic and the wind is blowing pretty hard, you can hear the metal from the roof and from the carport in the back. And it's definitely a danger.
We definitely know the roof and the carport are nuisances and dangerous. So I guess what I'm looking for is what would make the building, what would help us to determine whether the building needs to come down or not.
Well, one of the things that I would ask, and it's based on James Moon, our inspector, he mentioned that the bricks on the outside looks like there's cracking in some of the I don't know if it be mortar joints where, but I would assume based on that, those are at risk. Again, you've already mentioned the bricks were out in the road. Assumption was made that it was thrown, but who knows if it didn't fall off and hit the concrete and roll out there on its own. We just don't know. So, and we don't know what the next one is that's gonna.
I mean, it looks to me like some of the windows are covered with plywood and the majority of them are not. So that's going to allow anybody else to break in or just break stuff.
There's a couple of windows on the first floor that are not boarded up that are open. There's at least one door that, although it appears to be closed when you look at it, it was not. It was open. Part of our assumption about the top 3 rows of bricks on the north side are dangling off. Thank you, Amy. The persons that are going inside are not just our homeless population. We have reports from people who work and live in the area that kids go in there on a regular basis. And I used to go in an old cement plant to play near my house, so I know what it's like for kids to see an old building and decide that it's a playground. To me, this is dangerous for them to, for us. It's dangerous for us to allow a building to stand that kids are going to gather in.
Have we heard from the two houses that are next to it? They look like they're pretty well kept and people live there. Have we heard from them about any issues that they're having?
No, ma'am. I can't, whenever these pictures were taken, there was an individual that was out back trying to steal the copper out of one of the air conditioners on the Van Sanford Apartments. And it was noted later that this person may live in one of those houses.
Great.
Our code enforcement officer, who we rely on to identify areas of risk and to make it known, he has recommended that we approve the summary abatement of nuisance on this piece of property. He has a lot of experience in this. James knows what he's doing, and for me, he's a person I rely on to understand what would be considered safe or not safe, and that's his job. And that's something that he is recommending. I don't think we should take that lightly.
You as a city council have paid for tons of training for James and Amy to get to this point where they can knowledgeably give you instruction on what is safe and unsafe in our city.
We rely on our first responders to keep us safe, and if they can't go in that place to protect somebody, then I don't think there needs to stand anymore.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I could just interject. So the council has before it several pictures depicting the condition of the property with our code enforcement officials. It's been presented to the council that the building is unsecured, cannot remain secured, is open for entry, and that obviously children have been accessing it rather. So one of the things that the council would need to do is, number one, make a finding, either probably by vote, that this is a public nuisance, that's a nuisance in fact. And then, as far as the nuisance itself, you need to determine to what extent it is a nuisance. And what I mean by that is what constitutes the nuisance that makes it dangerous to the public, and what actions does the city need to take to authorize to abate the nuisance in the current condition? Whether that mean just take the roof off or take the building down.
So do we need a motion for that?
I would ask that there be findings made and that there be voting on each one of those issues.
Would we be able to vote on each finding without having it on the agenda?
It's included in this.
How does the public know the findings?
Well, you're gonna make it a record tonight, and, I mean, that's what this whole agenda is for.
I understand that piece, but I don't understand not having it made available like it's supposed to be in advance of the meeting, of the findings we were gonna address.
I thought it was published in the addendum.
It just says summary abatement, and you're saying
Yeah.
now we're going.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, yes, I'm following the summary abatement procedure in our
Right,
code.
it's in
the city
packet
ordinance.
that we received.
It authorizes the
Summary
council
abatement.
to determine.
It goes through all the.
A couple of things that I would like to say before you take action, mainly just to get it into the record, is that the property was purchased at auction after the damage done by the tornado. So the new owner knew what they were getting, This would be the auction that our code enforcement officer was in attendance and was asked to leave.
Also, I believe it was requested by the city that if this property was sold, before it was sold, that the owner had to advise the buyer or potential buyer that we had, this was going through a process.
That's right.
Of,
That's correct.
this process.
And it was published on the website, the open website for the auction, and I think it was made known by the auctioneer at the time, is what I'm told. And I believe since that time, there maybe have been some, I may be wrong, was there some initial contact with the purchaser from the outset?
Not by the city.
By the city? No. I know that the citations have been sent, and there's been numerous attempts to contact the new purchaser by phone, I believe, and by mail. No response, and that's occurred over a period of time, and I couldn't tell you when, but it's probably
3 weeks. A month?
And is there a process for them to appeal this? at a
Yes,
certain- So we can do this, and if they decide that, you know, they find out that we've done this, they can appeal it. They have a certain amount of time
Well,
frame.
I will say this, that if the city determines, if you determine that this is a grave enough situation that requires immediate action, you're going to authorize the city to take it down.
What happens to the property that the building is standing on now?
We'll put a lien on it for the costs of the abatement.
For the abatement? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Was the mail sent certified or registered,
Yes, sir.
and it was accepted,
No,
never came back?
it came back to us unserved.
By putting the lien on it, does that prevent anybody else from doing anything with it as far as building anything on it if we were to spend the money to clean it up?
We would have to be, you know, as of, I'll just, funny you ask that, after November 1 of this year, those liens remain on the property indefinitely. We are the ones that will be able to recoup that through the county treasurer, or the county treasurer, if it's not enough money to pay that off, then the county treasurer will give us the ability to take title to the property. We just have to affirmatively.
And we can prevent them from building or doing anything on that property. Because, I don't know, for the life of me, I just can't understand why somebody would buy it knowing the situation.
That's my thought.
And then not be able to, you know, not contact us, not work with us. It just seems a little strange.
Maybe it's in their plan to let us tear it down and clear it off, and they'll
That's-
just pay for what that
That's
costs.
what I was getting at.
That's what I think someone.
You know,
Now, there's another option you have, and, you know, based upon the concerns you may have on notice, if the council wants to direct the city officials to go through a formal abatement process, you know, and we can publish in the paper to try to find notice to the owner and do it, I think, 10 days or something.
The problem is somebody could die.
Yeah,
It
so-
could be kids, or it could be homeless. We don't know how safe those floors are. We don't know anything about it.
The property is being accessed. The roof looks to be like it's held together by spaghetti. And I was there the other night at Sonic with my child, and I'm looking at 15 people in between the building and the residence that Dana was talking about.
hanging out
And
back there.
and it's just, and I know that that we get complaints from people that are, you know, they're, you know, people going to Sonic and the employees there, you know, make comments. I asked one of the employees the other night, you know, what's going on over there, and she says they're in and out all night until they close.
Yeah, one thing we do know is we can't secure it as it is
right.
and make it safe.
Well, what is the process for us to just take the property to begin with? I mean, and it become ours if we do this? Isn't that an avenue for urban renewal to be able to just take the property?
We can condemn it, we can go through urban renewal, we can do this and place a lien on it. But yes, there's multiple avenues.
The problem is that's time.
This is an
That's-
emergency.
You're right.
No, I mean, on top of that, I mean, we want to get it torn down, obviously, but what would be the process for us to take take possession of the property after that?
Well, we could go through the tax, probably the quickest way to do it is to go ahead and take it down, place a lien on it, and then take it through the taxes by next year. By tax time, not this coming year, but the next year. Because it would go on one of the tax rolls probably for the following year. It might actually go on this year. Let's check this out. This is September.
You said November 1st, the lien,
The law
doesn't
changes
expire?
on November the 1st, where, I mean, we're still okay. We can place the lien on the property and try to recoup it. The question is the county treasurer going to enforce that lien issue? You know, right now, we have a difference of opinion on whether or not those liens go dormant, you know, at the end of the tax year. I'm of the opinion they last at least a year. As of November 1st, the Oklahoma legislature's changed the law where they remain indefinite. But,
Well, this is what what chaps me a little bit, because first one, somebody bought this knowing the condition. So it seems to me like they bought it with the intention of letting us tear it down, so then it becomes more valuable when the land is cleared. It's on a main artery. They turn around and sell and make a profit and put us at all the risk. And that really chaps my ass.
it's gonna
Pardon,
cost
sorry.
probably, what, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 to take it down?
Is this person deceased or something? Maybe, I mean, is there a way to check that to make sure something didn't
Since
happen to
May?
them, maybe now?
We don't know. We don't know. As far as we know, it could have been
Can we start the process?
a homeless person from Bristow. We don't
Start the
know.
process.
but we know this guy is actually a person, right?
Publish it in 10 days and, cure that.
It's AI taking
Yeah,
I can have him
over.
over tomorrow.
I'm just curious if that, I mean, I'm in agreement with you. I think someone would love to have that happen, and then they come back and, oh, it's all smooth now, let's just build all the apartments back, and they hand over fist money or sell the property like you stated.
Well, let's face it, I mean, if that property gets used, ultimately, that's what we want. It is. As long as we can recoup and we make it safe, so someone doesn't get hurt, to me, that's
That's why we're here.
first part. I mean,
Good point.
Is there a record of how much they paid for the building?
8,800.
They paid $8,800 for it.
So then it cost us $8,801.
It's gonna cost us a lot more than that to tear it down.
Did you say it would cost to tear it down, an estimate ballpark?
Haul it off.
You're talking about it, you're gonna.
$30,000, $40,000.
You got a house on one side, a street on one
30,
side, that's
40.
not gonna be just a
I
wrecking ball.
think you're looking at more than that.
You're gonna have to, you're gonna have to
I
be
think more like
fairly careful
75.
with another structure that close.
Yeah, in the road.
and this is gonna be a professional job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
You're lucky to get it done for 75, I think, but.
I don't think it'll be that much. Just- I think if you look at what Mattingly paid for his,
Was he 85, 80?
you know, I think you're probably in the 38, maybe more, 45.
More, I think it's a bigger building than his.
And there's a basement on the whole thing, you're gonna fill in the basement when you're done.
And the location next to the highway,
That's where all the bricks go.
have the highway shut down.
All right, so let's kind of refocus and get back on the questions that we need to answer.
Okay, well, I think in light of testimony, or not testimony, but what we've heard from the city staff and our discussions this evening, is that building is a nuisance. It is a safety, health and safety concern, and I think we need to proceed with the abatement process to have it taken down. I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Yeah, you would, I'd ask that there be a finding to that effect, and that also that it's a grave and immediate danger to the peace, health, and safety, and welfare of the public.
I think we found that. I'll make that motion.
Second.
Roll call, please, Jake.
Tim Poplin,
Yes, sir.
Corey Crabtree,
Yes.
Larry Church,
Yes.
Trace Connor,
Yes.
Chris Anson,
Yes.
Eddie Foreman,
Yes.
Dana Miller.
Yes.
Motion passes.
It still reeks of someone trying to use the city to finance their business venture to me.
You'd also need to make a motion directing the city to summarily abate the nuisance, but you need to define what that nuisance is. So, what is the nuisance? Is it the roof? Is it the entire building?
Entire building.
So somebody needs to make a motion that you declare that the entire building is a public nuisance and an immediate grave issue to the peace, health, safety of the public.
I make that motion, as you stated it.
I'm sorry, stupid question. Is the carport considered part of the building? Okay.
Yes.
Second.
Let me know when you're ready.
What was the motion?
That the entire building
Constitutes a hazard.
is a public nuisance. That constitutes a grave and immediate danger.
Okay.
To the public.
And you have a motion and a second? You have those? Okay. Roll call, please.
Tim Poplin,
Yes.
Corey Crabtree,
Yes.
Larry Church,
Yes.
Trace Connor,
Yes.
Chris Anson,
Yes.
Eddie Foreman,
Yes.
Dana Miller.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Finally, you need to direct the city staff to summarily abate the nuisance without unnecessary delay.
I so move.
Second.
Roll call.
Tim Poplin,
Yes.
Corey Crabtree,
Yes.
Larry Church,
Yes.
Trace Connor,
Yes.
Chris Anson,
Yes.
Eddie Foreman,
Yes.
Dana Miller.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the time and effort.
Thank you.
that has been
Thanks for the
spent
pamphlet.
on this. All right, with that, we will move on to remarks and inquiries, and we'll start with Ward 1, Larry Church.
Well, thank you all for entertaining evening. It's been a lot to discuss this evening, and as usual, I commend the city staff for all of the hard work that they've put in on preparing our meeting, and our attorney for shepherding us through this. Remember the lowly schizophrenic and the mentally ill and the children in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Ward 1, Dana Miller.
Welcome, everybody, to Ward 1. Speaking of Ward 1, in the last month, not one, not two, but 3 new businesses have popped up in the downtown area, which is really exciting. It's kind of exciting for me because I believe they're all female-owned businesses, and I just wanted to thank those business owners for not only investing in our town, but investing in the historical downtown area. One is Downtown Floral. Amy, am I got that right? Seminole Social, and what's the other one? Mandy Joe's Sweets and Things. So I would like to encourage you all to, I got to visit them all except for the Downtown Floral, and I do plan on heading over there, but I'd like to encourage everybody to head over there and to each of those businesses, welcome them, and maybe buy a few things if you have a chance. Few constituent issues. You heard from one earlier about the water. I got another one that lives on University, which is the street I live on. She has the same exact issue. Her bathroom and kitchen sinks, toilets, they're all being ruined by the color of the water. And she had reached out to me, and I forwarded that on to Steve as well. And I also, I guess I'm a constituent as well, I'm also experiencing the water taste and smells awful. Going through filters, going through a lot of cleaning supplies to try to get that color off of my sink. We were having to buy extra bottled water, which we never do. So there's an expense that is being incurred by these constituents, and so I want you all to understand that in your efforts to address that, and hopefully it's addressed pretty quickly. Water is life, and if we don't have clean drinking water, what do we have as a city? So wanted to make sure that you're all aware of that. Chase Park, there's still a couple lights that are out. We were doing really well there for a while. There were, I think, about 4 lights that were lit up. I think there's only 1 or 2. So I'm starting to see a little bit more activity out there at night now that it's dark again. So if there's an opportunity, Steve, for your team to look at why those lights are out. Just an update too from the discussion we had last week. One, I want to thank Chief Withers and Brad for kind of leading up the mayor's committee on addressing the policy for pet ordinances, the pet ordinance for the city. It's getting ridiculous out there right now. The Seminole Humane Society, I believe last week, had 21 puppies brought in 4 days. 2 litters and a couple others that were brought in. It's not even a question now, I think, of even policy. It's I don't know if they've ever faced anything as dire as what's going on right now. So I have a foster sitting in my mudroom right now. So we're all doing everything we can, but it's pretty grim. So, but in the meantime, I do just want to thank Chief Withers and Brad for pulling everybody together. I wasn't able to make that last meeting, but I know that there's a lot of work being done on your end. And then also, ending on a light note, Seminole Nation Festival is this weekend. Actually started on Saturday with the baby pageant, different activities going on through the whole week. So I'd like to encourage you all to go out to the McSickey Mission. There's a lot of good food. They're going to have good music. So everyone is welcome. Thousands of visitors will be coming through our city to attend this festival this weekend. So just everybody go out and have some fun. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Ward 2, Eddie Foreman.
Just want to remind everybody that's going to make a mission that the speed limit is 30 miles an hour on Ideal Street. That's all I have.
Thank you. Ward 3, Tim Poplin.
I have nothing, thank you.
Ward 3, Corey Crabtree.
I only have one item that need to be addressed. I don't know whose responsibility it is, but there is someone on Lee Street that contacted me several times and said she's contacted the city as well, doesn't know whose responsibility it is. But the traffic on Lee Street with after-school pickup, she's having a terrible time with people in her driveway, going the wrong direction. She can't get out of her own driveway because people are blocking it. I know that's a kind of a collaboration between city and school to make pickup happen because there's so many kids there, but she wanted to make it known that she would like someone there, even if it's an officer or something for a few days or something, just to patrol that street. You got it, just to make sure that these people are going the right direction and not blocking people's driveways and making it where she can't get out, because that turned into a one-way street after school, for those of you guys who don't know that. So people are continuing to turn the wrong direction, and it's causing all kinds of grief for her. So she just wanted to make sure I mentioned that. Other than that, I have nothing else.
Thank you. Ward 4, Chris Hansen.
I just apologize again for my little outburst there. I think people see me enough on this council to know that I do get passionate about some things, and to think that someone is taking advantage of our city, which seems to be the case in this, it just really chaps my hide. We have so many people, that was a better choice of words. We have so many people working to make our town better and to clean it up, and we're devoting so many resources to do that, through urban renewal and everywhere we can, and it's just, you know, when I feel like somebody's coming after us or doing something to the contrary intentionally, it's one of the things that really gets to me. So anyway, and the fact that we had started or were considering starting these proceedings before the property was put up for auction, and we gave the potential new owner the benefit of the doubt, only to just completely be ignored and shunned, basically. So, anyway.
Thank you. Ward 4, Tracy Conner.
We got a glowing report from Champion, Representative Preston out there on the golf course. Since September started, we've already had 2 tournaments. We've got 14 scheduled before the end of October. That's, if you got, any type of golf event that you'd like to host, Kevin Rigo, JAG, he'll handle your scheduling. Seminole, Camp Goddard, 50th year that we've been there. Even went there through COVID, successful year. Kids learn about fossils, canoeing, swimming, kayak, fishing, hiking, archery, made bracelets. We got a long-standing tradition there. 6th graders. So if you've been around Seminole for the last 50 years, you've been in 6th grade, you probably went to Camp Goddard. Seminole Clubhouse, speaking of kids, there's an after-school program for what I call latchkey kids, but my wife said, no, it's for parents that work till 5. And I was like, okay. So it's for pre-K through 6th grade. It's underway, and it is a safe place to go and have a snack, play, and learn something new. It's available to Seminole Public School kids, and so if there's, I think the next sign-up is in December, so that's one way to help keep our kids safe. That's all I got.
Thank you. So it's my turn. I also have water issues. It comes and goes. I mean, there'll be times that the water's clear, and other times it gets murky and smell right now. I don't know why. It's like the water table's being turned over. I just don't know, and I know we have a lot of areas where we flush the lines, but I would hope we could maybe review them and see if we need to do it more frequently or add other areas that could be, but I know the guys are out doing that on a regular basis. So hopefully we can figure out what's going on there. So I want Seminole Nation Days. Last year I was in the parade. They said first time mayor's been in it, Seminole mayor, and I don't know how long. I don't think any of them could remember, so I don't think I talked to anybody really old. So, but I want to talk about the evening. They're going to have several good bands, and you can go set up your lawn chair, sit out there and listen to the bands, and we had a great time last year. I think Smiling Vic is going to be one of the bands. They actually played downtown for one of the events we had. You're great. I'm hoping I can get back out there that evening. But, as some of you mentioned, there's just a lot of activity in Seminole. Houses, they're back on to the condos, new businesses opening. I mean, it's just like kind of once it got started, it keeps going. And yes, we need our citizens and our guests to go visit our businesses. We want to support them and keep them going. It always hurts when one place goes out of business because it takes a lot of effort to get a new business going. And, it's great to see all the businesses coming in and activities, and I look forward to this next year, see what's going to take place. With that, not that we're going to any downers, but we'll move on to the city manager, Steve Saxon.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much. We are, just to speak on the water issues, we want to hear those complaints. The Milt Phillips line in particular, you guys probably recall when we had serious highway problems right in front of Security State Bank. That required us to terminate that water line there. So in essence, what has happened is there's a dead-end line that lays right behind Security State Bank, back behind Carter Real Estate and those 3 customers. It's exceedingly difficult when you're on water wells to be able to keep that sediment flowing out. We have put on blow-off valves, and we were doing it once a week. We've increased that to twice a week, trying to improve water quality. But if you have water quality issues in your neighborhood, we want to know about that because we can go flush lines ahead of schedule. And more often, that's just part of what we have to do if we're going to stay on water wells. It's extremely high-quality water, but it can get discolored because of the sediment that we're pulling. So just make sure you're staying in contact with us or your city council member. I mentioned the dinner theater murder mystery on October 14th. I encourage everybody to help raise money for the library. The Chamber of Commerce golf fundraiser is not this Friday, but a week from Friday, right? So if you're a golfer, you need to be signed up, bring a whole team. You already hit Seminole Nation Days. So we're getting calls at City Hall about trying to have Halloween on the 27th. I don't know if you guys have given any consideration to that, but we'll put that on the agenda for next month. So you guys be thinking about what night we'll be doing the authorized trick or treat. And then, Mr. Poplin, we are working on that ordinance you've requested about designer polo shirts being attractive when they're worn to the city council meetings, okay? Look at it, Mayor.
That's twice today, he's hit me up on it, so that's why I didn't do that.
I got
All right, so you get to go again, Steve, that wasn't good enough, since you, all right, we'll move on to our city attorney, Frank. Okay, I think this has been a long enough night. With that, I entertain a motion for adjournment. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Stay in.